The war between Israel and Hamas began with a Hamas onslaught on Israelis that left 1,200 dead with allegations of rape, torture and beheadings of civilians. The Israeli campaign in Gaza has gained intensity since the ceasefire between Israel and Hamas ended. And a UN Security Council resolution calling for an immediate ceasefire has been vetoed by the United States, with the United Kingdom abstaining. Meanwhile, 138 hostages are presumably inside Gaza in Hamas captivity. To update us on the IDF operation, I'm pleased to be joined by Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner from Tel Aviv. Peter Lerner, thank you very much for joining us. Is it true that we're now at a new level of intensity in this campaign?
Good morning, Michael. Yes, absolutely. We are broadening the scope of our activities, increasing the engagement with the terrorists on the ground and seeking out Hamas wherever they are. Absolutely, we've broadened the scope in several areas, but most predominantly in the Khan Yunis area, which is a southern center of gravity of Hamas, a operational hub of their activities. And indeed, I can definitely report at this stage, we are moving forward, engaging and killing terrorists extensively. And where we aren't killing them, they are raising the white flag and turning themselves in.
According to the Hamas-dominated Ministry of Health, I think they're now saying something like 17,000 people have been killed. Do you have an estimate for how many of those were combatants?
Several thousands of those are terrorists, several thousands of those that we've engaged on the ground, several thousands of those that we've taken out by airstrikes or naval strikes. So I would say there's an increasing number, and even as we speak now, the fight still continues. And I would also say that almost in every engagement that we are seeking out the terrorists, they are being killed on the battleground.
So several thousand, I think you said several thousand out of 17,000. And there are about 7,000 children who have been killed. Do you dispute that figure?
So we don't know for sure, and obviously we have to be cautious at accepting anything Hamas says. And I would say that every civilian killed in this war is an individual tragedy, a tragedy for the community and tragedy for the people of Gaza as well. Each and every one of those lies on the shoulders of Hamas that decided to open this war. We are now taking the war in order to achieve our goals of dismantling and destroying Hamas as a governing authority, and also to bring home those 137 hostages that are still being held this morning here in Israel, including 17 women and children that Hamas refused to release.
I would be the first to acknowledge that, for example, in trying to win the Second World War against Nazism, huge numbers of innocent civilians and children were killed by the Allies, for example, in bombing raids. But we are in an era now of greater precision warfare. I think the IDF has been using 900-kilogram bombs, some of which, according to reports, have wiped out whole families. Is it still the claim that the IDF is doing everything that it possibly can to avoid civilian casualties?
Michael, I think we also need to understand the nature of the area of combat. This is what Hamas has done over the last 16 years. They've built their infrastructure. There isn't one civilian building that we aren't finding weapons or access points to their tunnel system, or command and control positions, which is basically communications hubs where they instruct the operatives to operate from. And this really illustrates exactly the nature of how we are conducting our warfare. But I would definitely say the nature of getting people out of harm's way is the essence of our operations, of distinguishing between the civilians and the terrorists, the non-combatants and those that are hostiles. Absolutely, I would say that is, that lies at the center of our decision-making process, but also the essence of how we mobilize on the ground. Of course, when terrorists are using schools for staging grounds, when they're using mosques, when they're using hospitals, it puts all of the civilian population at risk. And what we are doing is trying to get people out of harm's way by instructing them, by encouraging people to move from place to place, by putting out announcements. Even in the last couple of hours, we've given more announcements to civilians in specific areas because we need to operate there, because that is precisely where Hamas is operating. So the nature, and I would also argue, and I definitely reflect on what you're saying about World War II and how we've advanced since then. Unfortunately, the enemy has degraded since then. They don't differentiate themselves between the civilians and their activities. Hamas, precisely when we're watching the propaganda videos that they distribute, they're all wearing sandals and jeans. This is the enemy that we face, and we are seeking them out. We have no choice. This isn't a war we wanted at all. I would actually say it's a war we were surprised by. But the paradigm has to change. Hamas have to go, and we need to be able to make sure that Israelis and Palestinians can live in peace.
It's a very important part of your political strategy to maintain the support of your allies. It's striking that Lord Cameron, since he became Foreign Secretary, has been urging the Israelis to, well, I think broadly speaking, to take greater care. Interesting to me that the United Kingdom abstained on the resolution the other day. Are you confident that you're maintaining the support of your allies?
I'm confident that we are supported in a way that everybody understands that the goal of bringing home the hostages and ridding the world or the control of Gaza, of Hamas, is the right thing to do. Of course, we're very attentive to our allies, to our American allies, to our British allies that are telling us to be careful, to increase humanitarian supplies, and absolutely we intend on increasing the humanitarian supplies that go into Gaza. But at the end of the day, the difference perhaps is between the wars of the last 20 years in the Middle East, of conflicts in similar arenas, close combat, densely populated areas, this is on our doorstep. These people, these terrorists came from the town of Khan Yunis into the kibbutz, into Re'im, into the towns, and they butchered the babies of the kibbutzim in their bedrooms. They took the women, they raped the women, they beheaded people, and then they snatched them into Gaza. So this is literally on our doorstep, and they came into our houses, and that's what they did. And this is why the situation, the paradigm has to change.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us today, Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner.